So I'm now, I had the good fortune to meet Yongli Zhang when I was visiting Wayne State University earlier this year, and I was so impressed with the stuff that she was working on that when I was thinking about this workshop, I said, well, this is something we absolutely have to have. And she was very kind, and she reorganized her schedule to be with us today to really talk about what I think is an emerging issue that maybe is really not yet on most people's radar, which is microplastic pollution in urban areas. So, Yongli, thank you.
Thanks, Deborah, for inviting me to this talk. And we heard a lot of great talks from industry, academia, and as well as the government agency. I think this is a great experience that we usually don't get from other conference and meetings. Thank you again. So here I'm going to talk about microplastic pollution in urban areas. So particularly about what should we know and what can we do. As Deborah said, it's probably still some emerging topics. So before I talk, I just want to do a little survey. How many of you heard about microplastics? If you heard about, please raise your hand. Right. That's great. So I think probably 2/3 of you already hear about those microplastics. And then, as you know, you can say that right now it's really an emerging concern that we can find those microplastics everywhere in our environment, in oceans, surface water, groundwater, drinking water, in our food, like beer and like salt, and also drinks, aquatic organisms, and even found in human beings. So what are they? So basically, microplastics are defined as small plastic particles, or in a broader definition is any synthetic material particles that's less than 5 millimeters. So there's many sources that come from for those microplastics. They can come from primary microplastics. Those are intentionally manufactured to be of the microplastic size. I think the most common known of the microplastics is this microbeads from the healthy and beauty products like the face wash before, and also there's other microplastic beads that are used in other industries such as glitter, like in a party, they give a party and a painting, there's a shiny, there's glitter and painting and coating, inks. They also add those some of the microplastics. And also you also use the industrial organisms. So that is the primary sources. And there's another source that we call that secondary sources that come from degraded from large plastic debris or torn off from like the wear and tearing, such as when you wash your clothes, there are a lot of fibers go to the sewer. And also if we leave those plastic litter in the environment, eventually they're going to break down to those small pieces. If you look at this picture here, this is not very uncommon. So this picture I just take from, not from New York, okay. I took from the area I live that is in a mall. So you can near a mall, you can say, wow, there's plastic there. So what are they going to do? Eventually they are going to break down those small and those water environments. So we also want to know what's the pathway. I mean, how do they enter into the environment? So basically, we can have 2 categories of the pathways. First is direct or point sources that flows from wastewater effluent discharge, but I don't want, we should not blame these water utilities because this is something not designed to be removed by the water utilities. I mean, water utilities have been doing a great job. Also, another pathway is indirect or non-point sources, such as runoff from agricultural land and from urban runoff, and also the litter breakdown. We just talked about that. So from all those pathways, a lot of studies have implicated that urban area significantly contribute to the microplastic pollution in the environment. Because there's multiple from sources that come from urban areas, that's from wastewater treatment effluent, particular microfibers, and also the urban runoff. Urban runoff is also one of the significant sources that bring those microplastics into the environment, and also those litter breakdown, as well as torn off of tires when you drive the tires, and torn off of the tire with synthetic materials. So this shows you how it's a very simple graph to how those microplastics goes into the environment from urban area. So this right picture is our community partner invited me to go to their environment to look at how their sewer system that can really collect a lot. There's a lot of those plastic debris and it goes into the sewer system. I'm going to talk about later about what we do in those communities. But urban area are significant sources for microplastic pollution. There's also a study to confirm that. So this is study just released and published this year in a survey in China. So the investigate the microplastic in Yangli River and in the Yongli River that close to the urban center and also estuary and also sea. So they found that there is a significant correlation with the distance and the concentration of microplastics with the distance close to the urban center. So basically, you can see that as the closer to the urban centers, and then the higher density of the microplastic they found that. And also in Great Lakes studies, I didn't show that here. The highest microplastic concentration was found in Detroit River, that is close to the Metro Detroit area. And here, there's interestingly, I just found this article this year, today. So it is talk about the CNN article talk about how rivers became the plastic highway into the ocean. So basically those rivers near this urban area, and then they really carry this plastics into the oceans and far away. So if you have not read these articles, I will sign your homework. You probably can read that after today. It's really interesting. Just about today. Thanks for bringing to add that here. So why microplastic is a concern? So basically, they could have some adverse impacts on ecological and human health. So first, because they're tiny size, they can be millimeter size, they can be micrometer size, they could be even nanometer size. So the smaller size, the bigger issue they could cause. So because they're tiny size, they can easily into our food and water system and hardly to be detected. So there's a number of studies have found that they can accumulate in aquatic organisms. For example, people found the microplastics or fibers in salmon fishes. And also, they found in our drinking water a survey about last year, a survey showed that about 80% of the tap water around the world and over 90% of the bottled water, they have microplastics. So if with that concentration in the water, we probably each year, each person, we will take about 5,800 particles of plastic, and which from 88% come from drinking water. So if we think about what's impact, and right now there's no conclusive studies to show what exactly the risk impact on human health. But if you think about microplastic, do you want some microplastic in your body? Probably not, right? And also the plastics, they could release some chemicals like chemical additives that could be harmful. And they also inclined to absorb some hydrophobic organic pollutants that could be harmful. And also they could be larval vectors that collect or transport the unique of the bacteria and then the water cycle that could be harmful. So there's more research that needs to look at what is a health impact. But here we're going to talk about, particularly in this talk, I'm going to talk about how we're going to solve this problem, right? We know they are everywhere. They are around us. We found everywhere. But what we can do? So from our perspective, as well as from a lot of other organizations like workshops, there have been a few workshops like EPA, International Association of a Commission of between U.S. Research Commission between U.S. and Canada. They have some workshops in microplastics. They identified that the most effective way to battle this problem could be one top priority is to reduce the pollution sources. So instead of treatment, so as I said, we should not blame the water utility not to treat them because those utilities are not designed to treat them. So instead of treat them, let them go into the environment, we should do something to from the source to cut the pollution source. Another question you might say, oh, we probably don't use plastic. Is it possible? I would say no. So there's still a lot of plastic product we need to use, but what we can do is we can do a lot of management and to control the pollution source that goes into the environment. So one example is the Microbead-Free Water Act that 2015. It prohibits the microbeads in washing of cosmetics. That's a great progress, but it cannot solve the problem, as I already said before, because there's so many sources of microplastics. So that's challenges because we have multiple pollution sources. We have primary, secondary, direct source, non-direct source, and we also have so many types of plastics. And also, it's very difficult to monitor microplastics in the environment. So even we have some regulations or policies there, how we can see whether the regulation or policy is effective. So it's a lot of challenges. And based on those challenges, also there's those organizations I just mentioned, the ETA, International Commission of Research, and they identified some critical needs for such efforts, like develop analytical methods for microplastic detection, identify sources, translation research, and research programs to educate the public for pollution provisions. So here I just briefly introduce my project right now currently going on. So that is designed to address those challenges. So this is funded by Great Lakes Protection Fund. It is a 3-year project. It's multidisciplinary. We have research from civil and environmental engineering and electronic engineering and computer science and social study. We also have a lot of community partners. So the overall goal is to reduce the microplastic pollution in the Great Lakes. So through the sensor technology development, so as well as community engagement and mitigation initiatives. So we have 3 objectives we developed and apply the sensor technology. So basically, that will be used to identify what's the microplastic pollution source. And then we will do community engagement, and then we'll do some scale-up adoption. So this sensor technology, I'm not going to do much detail. I could spend half an hour talk about that, but basically we use a Raman spectrum and to build some online sensor that will integrate the way. So this is our graph of how we build our sensor. We will integrate it with machine learning and big data analysis and edge computing, so that edge computing can compute the signal at the sensor to identify and quantify microplastics. And then we will use the sensor to get information about what's the major pollution source at a particular location. We choose 2 community partners. One is the city of Williamston, another is the city of Pontiac. So this is 2 urban areas. One is small urban development, another is a big metro area. So we will do some mitigation strategy. In city of Williamston, we will do laundry bag that can capture the fiber. So in the city of Pontiac, we will look at the green infrastructure to capture the reduced runoff and reduce the micro pollution. And then we will do some extended outreach like advisory board, travel, demonstration. So this is our summer work. We have our first advisory board in March 2019. So we basically have 42 members and 70 in network. So if you are interested, you can contact me. We can keep you in a network. And I just want to share the top 3 issues identified. It can be a reference for you to discuss tomorrow. And so this is top 3 issues identified by the advisory board. So it is very interesting and to further discuss. And again, I think we need a lot of actions. So good thing is we already see a lot of action, but we need more. And with that, I thank the founder and collaborator. And this is my information.
So Yongli, for thinking back what you saw earlier today and some of the systems that we talked about, cities keeping track of data, and what information might be useful in terms of trying to understand some of these sources in terms of open data and not so open data that might be integrated with some of the work that you're doing?
So I can think a lot of integration about my work and other talks, other experts talk this morning. For example, you talk about data, what data, right? For example, if we want to identify the sources, right, we can let's take example of the wastewater discharge, like fibers, right, microfibers. So we could put the sensors in the sewer system to say which particular neighborhood has the most contribution of the fibers. And then if we identify that, we can probably do some action, go to those communities to try to negotiate or try to communicate with them. Another example is like the urban runoff, right? We can also get those data for those urban runoff from the larger urban area, and then we can say which area or which runoff outfall has the highest density of microplastic, and then we can go back to say, all right, which area we should focus on more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.